Well, it's been a huge couple of weeks for Reform UK. We are in the news all the time. In some opinion polls, we're now above Labour, in others, above the Conservatives. What's for certain is we now have three parties polling somewhere in the 20s, and we're the ones on the up. Now look, you'd have read about Elon Musk, and is he going to give us a load of money? And then yesterday, Nick Candy, the big property developer, known by some as Holly Valence's husband, it's a bit unfair, but it's true. Nick joined us yesterday as our treasurer, and we're going to raise money. Some people say, well, you know what? If the big money guys are coming in, I don't need to do anything. Let me tell you this. If we are going to build a people's army that beat the establishment, that give us in a few years' time the kind of government we need to turn round the decline in this country.
Stay tuned, because this story could turn the political situation in the UK around. A real political scandal broke out in Westminster this morning, which shocked the whole country. Nigel Farage has furiously attacked Prime Minister Keir Starmer, accusing him of undermining the foundations of democracy. What happened? The most important local elections, which were supposed to take place on May 2025, have been unexpectedly postponed, not just for a few months. According to the latest data, they may be postponed to 2026 or even 2027. This decision caused a real shock in political circles, and now everyone is wondering, is this a necessary reform, or is this a carefully planned seizure of power by the Labour Party?
Don't just think Elon or Nick Candy are going to save us. Think, what can I do to join a movement that is really on the march, really on a roll? So I urge you, if you want change, if you want to see economic decline, societal decline, turned around, and goodness me, I do, and I'm sure you do as well, come and join us. Go to the website here right now. It's 25 quid. It's nothing. You know, it's not much more than the price of a packet of fags these days, or a round of pints of Guinness. So think about it. We can't do it without you. This needs to be a huge mass movement. Tories have failed us completely, betrayed us completely. Labour are utterly hopeless. You all know the country's going down the tubes. Please join us. Get involved. Let's make this happen.
Farage calls it a desperate attempt to stay in power, and he is not alone in his feelings. Let's figure out why the elections were postponed, what political consequences this may have, and how it fuels accusations of dictatorship. Nigel Farage, the leader of the Reform UK party and one of the fiercest critics of the current political establishment, is not shy in his words. He asserts with full confidence that the decision of the Labour Party to postpone the elections is a blatant seizure of power that cannot be ignored. Farage believes that the age-old dominance of the two traditional parties, Labour and Conservative, is crumbling under the weight of their own failures, and they are desperately trying to maintain control. According to him, the old guard is in a panic, realizing that their time has run out. People are starting to see the truth, and the day of reckoning is rapidly approaching. But he didn't stop there. Farage also accused the Labour Party of borrowing tactics from the American Democrats, claiming that they use democracy as a shield while undermining its foundations behind closed doors.
Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves. This is not protest. It is organised, violent thuggery, and it has no place on our streets or online.
In an official statement from Reform UK, the situation is escalating. The party calls the postponement a deliberate attack on those areas where it is actively gaining popularity. The official explanation came from local government minister Jim McMahon, who claims that councils in regions such as Essex, Kent and Sussex are undergoing major restructuring. According to him, some councils are merging, others are being abolished, and these reforms must be completed before the elections. But here the story takes an unexpected turn. These regions are the real arenas of the struggle for reform in the UK. Is it just a coincidence that the delays are happening at a time when Labour is facing its most serious problems? Farage is sure that this is not an accident.
Good evening. Are we living in a Keir Starmer dictatorship? Rumours were swirling that Labour was going to cancel the local elections in England.
Why aren't they all going ahead?
And I would say, even before the white paper has been published,
Maybe there's a problem with the line. Why aren't they going ahead, Minister?
Well, at the moment, the assumption is that elections are going ahead. However, it's usual in a process of reorganisation that when a council makes a request for reorganisation, if there are elections taking place to a council that it essentially won't exist within the term of those elections, then you hold off the elections and you elect to a shadow body, and the shadow body basically is a form of the new councils that will follow.
And now we appear to have confirmation on this. Some local elections due to take place in May next year might now be delayed until 2027. Labour says that they want to postpone them because they're restructuring the councils. Some might not exist in a couple of years' time.
He furiously rejected the explanations of the Labour Party, calling them nothing more than a convenient excuse to delay the elections when the ruling party is in a panic, afraid of serious losses. These are harsh and bold statements that resonate in the hearts of many voters. Do not forget that in Essex, Kent and Sussex, a wave of discontent with Labour's policies is growing. Rising living costs and unresolved local issues create the perfect ground for reform in the UK, and Labour cannot just turn a blind eye to this. Veteran MP Harriet Harman in turn called Reform UK a threat to democracy, arguing that Farage's rhetoric is only dangerous populism. But the chairman of Reform UK, Yusuf, did not stand aside and responded furiously, sharply criticising Starmer. This confrontation heats up the situation and makes everyone think about the future of the political arena.
So these local elections were seen as a referendum on Keir Starmer's government. He's currently the most unpopular Prime Minister of modern times, with an approval rating of somewhere in the region of -61. And this graph actually shows just how quickly his popularity has nosedived. He is sinking like the Titanic, and Labour are fearful of a monumental kicking in May. Angela Rayner has tried to spin this. She says this is all part of devolution and she's giving power back to the communities. Well, Reform MP Rupert Lowe struck back, stating the bleeding obvious. You don't give power back to communities by cancelling elections, Angela.
Yusuf furiously accused Starmer of despotic behaviour, claiming that he was purposefully targeting those regions where Labour knew it could suffer a crushing defeat in the upcoming elections. This is not a democracy, but a massive manipulation, he exclaimed, emphasizing that the tension was building and the stakes had reached the limit. Both parties are trying to present themselves as defenders of democracy, but at the same time furiously accuse each other of destroying it. In response to the backlash, Angela Rayner unveiled a new Labour Party book on devolution in England, which she called a turning point for Britain. Rayner has clearly outlined her position. Labour seeks to return power to the people. The book outlines ambitious plans to transfer control from Whitehall to local communities, which, she says, should not only boost economic growth, but also improve living standards, ensuring stability in a country that has endured years of chaos. We want to give local councils the opportunity to decide their own future, she said. But critics did not slow down with the reaction, pointing out the obvious contradiction. How can Labour talk about empowering communities by postponing elections that give these communities a much-needed voice?
There is no justification, none, for taking this action, and all right-minded people should be condemning this sort of violence. People in this country have a right to be safe, and yet we've seen Muslim communities targeted, attacks on mosques, other minority communities singled out, Nazi salutes in the street, attacks on the police, wanton violence alongside racist rhetoric. So no, I won't shy away from calling it what it is, far-right thuggery. To those who feel targeted because of the colour of your skin or your faith, I know how frightening this must be.
For many, this move undermines the credibility of Labour's promises. The stakes here go far beyond a single election cycle. This is not just a confrontation between Labour and Reform UK or Farage and Starmer. It's about the future of democracy in the UK. Postponing the elections, even for technical reasons, sets a dangerous precedent. Critics argue that this undermines public confidence in the system, making voters feel powerless. And given the growing accusations of dictatorship, the damage to Labour's image could be significant. Labour supporters, in turn, argue that this is a matter of responsible governance. They insist that hasty elections in the midst of council reforms could lead to more chaos, rather than an improvement in the situation. The real question is, who will the public believe? Farage's fiery rhetoric touches the feelings of many disillusioned voters, while Labour's promises of stability and progress appeal to those who are tired of the political struggle.
This is unbelievably rich, coming from Labour. Over the weekend, Labour's very own Baroness Harriet Harman was all over the media, saying that Nigel Farage and Reform were a threat to democracy.
Well, I think people should be very concerned about Reform because they're not just a threat to individual parties, but I actually think they're a threat to democracy because they are offering easy answers.
And now they are set to, apparently, cancel local elections in Essex, Hertfordshire, Kent, Lancashire and Sussex. The cynic in me would say this: Labour are tanking. Starmer's handling of the summer disorder, his freezing of pensioners, crippling of farmers, relentless desire to give your money, taxpayers' money, away abroad, which included another 50 million quid to Syria yesterday, the Lord Ali Sleaze and Donergate fiasco, Ed Miliband's big green revolution, and, frankly, his total lack of personality.
Looking to the future, it becomes obvious that the stakes have never been so high. Will these election delays have negative consequences for Labour, contributing to the rise in popularity of Reform UK, or will Labour's vision of devolution in England win the trust of voters in the long run? This applies not only to politics, but also to the very foundation of British democracy. Are we witnessing the necessary reform to improve governance, or a deliberate seizure of power to protect the interests of Labour? Let's zoom out for a moment. In fact, this is not just a political tug-of-war between Labour and Reform UK. It is a direct challenge to the voice of the British people. Postponing the elections, even under the pretext of administrative reforms, is perceived by many voters as a betrayal. For decades, Britain has prided itself on being a beacon of democracy, where every citizen has the right to hold their leaders accountable through regular elections. Share your thoughts in the comments. See you.